Hi everybody, welcome back to the cottage. I'm so glad that you're here joining me today. I'm going to be sharing the story of how these metal bed frames became part of our possessions here at the cottage, and also explain a bit why we are content taking the slow and intentional approach to adding things to our home, even if it means a lot of extra elbow grease. So we have been living here in Arrow Hill Cottage for just under 2 years now, and throughout this time I've shared bits and pieces of our home here on YouTube, and on occasion I will get an offhand comment or a rude message that will say something like, "Your home is just so bare, it looks like you just moved in, it doesn't look very comforting or homey." And I try not to get offended by these comments because I do understand that taking the slow and intentional approach to filling your home with furniture and decor items isn't probably the way that most of society goes, but it is one path that we are very specific about. We want to make sure that every item that we bring here is intentional and useful and beautiful to us, and these metal bed frames are the perfect example to illustrate this point. When we were designing our home, I kept envisioning the girls' bedrooms with twin metal bed frames. I'm not really sure why, but it was the vision that always kept popping into my head. And I first looked online to see if there was anything that I could purchase new that would fit the bill, and I just wasn't finding the quality that I was looking for. And lo and behold, a little bit later, one of my friends and coworkers was cleaning out her barn, and she had a whole bunch of old metal bed frames. These are the antique metal bed frames that you would find back in the 1900s, and she had no use for them. So she had put a post up saying, you know, anybody want these metal bed frames? And it just clicked in my head that even if they didn't look quite right yet, I knew that they could be transformed into a treasure. When the bed frames first came to us, they were in pretty rough shape with rusting areas and lots of peeling paint, but Craig was determined to take on this project and make these bed frames new again. He started by removing the casters from the legs of the bed because we knew we wouldn't be moving them around at our home with our hardwood floors. We knew that would scratch the flooring. And then he set straight to work on removing all the paint. And this was a very long multi-step process because there were layers and layers of paint. Again, these bed frames are probably close to or maybe over 100 years old, and they had been painted multiple times in their service. And so each layer he had to add a coat of the stripping material and scrape it off and just repeat this process multiple times until he was finished. He was insistent on getting all the way down to the bare metal. He didn't want any little fleck of paint left on it, and that meant that he sometimes had to go in with hand sandpaper and get to all those little itty bitty cracks and crevices that it wasn't getting cleaned out with the stripping agent. Before I get too far into this video, I do want to say that if you're someone who's taking on an antique bed restoration of your own and you're feeling overwhelmed and maybe need a little bit more guidance, that my husband did a series of 4 videos that detail this entire process of bringing these metal bed frames back to life, and I will have those videos linked down in the description box for you to check out. And then after most of the paint was gone, he took another step and used the wire wheel brush on a drill and got the metal very smooth and completely free of any paint. I was shocked that he was able to do this, but I'm glad he took the extra effort to bring everything down to the bare metal. He gave each piece one last final wash and then laid everything out in the sun to dry. Then it was finally time for paint, and first he wanted to make sure that we did a nice Rust-Oleum primer, and this was a really exciting time to watch these pieces transform from the bare metal now to the black finish. And this part was a lot more satisfying, and it went a lot quicker obviously than the removing of the paint. We found the perfect size of sliders to add to the bed frame feet, and this will just ensure that there won't be any scratching of our hardwood floors. And then came one of the more complicated parts of the process, and that was to get the bed frames to work with a standard size mattress. If you know anything about antique beds, the mattress sizes back in the old days were not the same sizes that they sell commonly today, and so we had to kind of finagle a way to make them work for us. And here's what we did. A lot of standard bed frames now come with kind of an L-shaped configuration where you can lay slats across, but these beds were made for the mattress to actually sit on top of the metal rail, and the L shape was actually upside down. We didn't want to alter the bed frames in any way by maybe screwing through them to add slats or anything like that, and so the solution that we came up with was to add a sheet of plywood that would span the entire bed frame, and then the mattresses, which the standard size now are smaller than the antique mattress sizes, the mattress that we had would sit directly on top of the plywood. And Craig came up with a unique idea on how to attach the plywood to the frame without doing anything too serious. He used some washers and some bolts and kind of sandwiched it together so that it was nice and sturdy and strong. After adding linens and pillows and personal touches such as stuffed animals, these beds are now the perfect centerpiece feature for our girls' shared bedroom, and they love crawling into their beds every single night at bedtime. And this again is the reason why we are so okay with taking our time and being intentional about adding these items to our home, because now these beds have a story that we can tell, and our kids and our grandkids will be able to tell these stories. Who knows, these beds could go on for another 100 years because Craig took the time and the effort to bring them from the brink of the garbage dump, literally, and back to life and back in service. Well, I love telling stories about the items that we have in our home and the meaning behind them, and I hope that it's interesting to you, maybe gives you some inspiration or at least the freedom to do something similar. Take your time by adding those items slowly, really think about what makes you happy and why you want this item to be in your space, and you'll be able to have a collected home look as well. If you're someone who has a love for restoration and you like that type of content, I have another video that chronicles the process of how we took an old cast iron sink and now have it installed in our powder room. So I will leave a link for that video down in the description box that you can check out right after this. Thank you so much for watching my video today, and I hope that you'll stop by the cottage again really soon.